under a black sky laced with radiation storms and broken satellites. The last true Earthborn, a girl named Kale, walked barefoot across the crumbling bones of Manhattan. Her boots had melted in the acid rain 2 nights ago, and she hadn't found another pair in the skeletal ruins. Each step was agony. Each breath tasted of iron and ash. But she kept moving. She had to. The voice in her head whispered again, the same 3 words it had repeated for 7 years. Protect the secret. She didn't know where the voice came from. It wasn't hers. It wasn't anyone's. It came only when she was in danger, only when it mattered, and it always told the truth. The last time it spoke, she was 12, hiding beneath a burned-out mag train when the Ilari sent a scout pod overhead. She hadn't moved, not even to cry. She remembered the shadow that passed over her then, like a vulture stretching its wings across the stars. She didn't know what the secret was, only that the invaders wanted it, and somehow, she was it. A low hum echoed through the skeletal city, cutting through the wind and distant thunder. Her ears twitched. That hum didn't belong to the wind. It belonged to something worse, Ilari drones. Kale dropped into a crater, tucking herself into the shattered ribs of a collapsed skyscraper. She could see the thin shimmer of distortion as the drone passed above, silent as breath. Not seeing her, not yet, but they would. She reached into the pouch on her belt. 3 things remained: a rusted flare, a metal shard from her father's, armor, and a thumb-sized cube that pulsed with faint blue light. She didn't know what the cube was. Her mother gave it to her the night Earth fell, and made her swear to never let it go. It's not a weapon, her mother had said, but it's why they'll hunt you, if it opens. Don't let them take it. Kale had asked once, years ago, what's in it? Her mother had only whispered, the reason they fear us. Kale clutched it now as the hum vanished into the storm. The voice hadn't warned her. Maybe that meant she was safe. Or maybe it was too late. She climbed out of the crater and started moving again. North toward the last known coordinates of the beacon, the secret underground relay that once connected Earth's resistance cells. If anything still functioned, it would be there. If any humans still fought, they'd be listening. And if no one answered, she didn't let her thoughts finish. At dusk, she reached the edge of the old Central Park basin. Now, it was a pit of glass and fused steel. No trees, no grass, just the scar of orbital bombardment. The wind howled through the ruins like a dying animal, and then she saw it, a glint. Not metal, not debris, a reflection of eyes. She ducked. The figure stepped from the shadows, tall, armored, inhuman. Its body was smooth and obsidian black, with no visible joints, no seams, just a single red slit where a face might be. Ilari Enforcer. Kale didn't breathe. The cube in her pouch pulsed once, then again, faster. The Enforcer turned toward her, as if it had felt the pulse, and the voice whispered, urgent and sharp. Run now, she sprinted. The ground behind her cracked as the Enforcer moved too fast, inhumanly fast. It glided across the terrain like it was flying. She dove behind a scorched tank, but the machine was already lifting it with one hand. She rolled away as it hurled the tank like a toy. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs. She staggered up and pulled the flare. A stupid, desperate move. She struck it against the ground and flung it. The red light burst through the darkness, and the Enforcer paused. Then it spoke, not in sound, but directly into her mind. Cold, alien. Return the origin. Kale stared, frozen. What are you talking about? The machine tilted its head. You do not know. You carry the origin, and you do not know. It reached for her. And she screamed, I don't know what it is. Something shifted in the cube. Light brighter now, spilled through the pouch. The enforcer recoiled, as if struck. Kale didn't understand. But she ran, again. She didn't look back. For hours she fled, deeper into the dead city. The cube's light faded as she crossed the last known marker. A crumbled statue of Unity Tower, where the beacon was rumored to lie beneath. The access hatch was hidden beneath a collapsed statue. She pried at it, fingers bleeding, bones creaking, and then a click. The hatch opened. She dropped in. Below was darkness. She descended. Stairs led to corridors to chambers filled with rusted equipment, broken screens, and walls painted with symbols, old resistance codes. She was close. A terminal blinked weakly in the corner. She approached it. Static hissed as it powered on. Enter authorization, she hesitated, then pulled the metal shard, her father's, and pressed it to the port. The machine hummed. Then the screen filled with text. Humanity held the secret, you are the last key, initiating protocol. End light, the floor trembled. A wall panel slid open, and a man stepped out. Not a hologram, not a machine. A man, breathing, alive, human. He looked no older than 30, worn clothes, pale eyes. He stared at her and said, I was told I'd wake only if we lost. She blinked. Who are you? The man stepped forward, eyes locking onto the cube. That, he said slowly, isn't just the origin. It's the map to our last weapon. And the Alari have no idea what it actually does. Kale's voice shook. What does it do? He smiled faintly. It remembers, she frowned. Remembers what? He leaned in, whispered like it was blasphemy. Everything they erased. Before she could speak, the wall behind them exploded inward. The enforcer had followed her, its blade drawn, its lighters burning, and the man didn't move. He just said, good, let it come. It's time they remembered why they feared us. Kale turned to run, but the enforcer was already there. The cube pulsed white-hot in her hand, and suddenly her vision blurred. Her skin felt like it was burning. A memory not hers flooded her mind. Soldiers, millions, dying while laughing. Machines falling from the sky. The scream of an Alari queen as she was torn in half by a human mind hijacking her nervous system. Kale staggered. The cube had awakened something. And then, behind her, the man said something strange, something terrifying. They don't know that we gave them the stars. The enforcer lunged. The cube shattered in Kale's hand, releasing a burst of light that knocked them all backward. And in the silence that followed, as dust settled and machines powered down, a new voice spoke, not hers, not the man's, not the enforcer's, a voice older than any. You have returned the memory. The truth will rise. And then Kale vanished, not into death, into light. Kale's eyes opened to a sky that wasn't Earth's, above her. 2 suns hung in a lavender sky threaded with violet gas streams. Alien constellations pulsed across the heavens, forming patterns she felt in her bones but didn't recognize. The ground beneath her was smooth and metallic, yet warm, not cold, not hostile. She wasn't alone. The man from the underground chamber stood beside her, hands in his pockets, as if this were all normal. But something about him had changed. His eyes glowed faintly now, like stars drowned in memory. His presence hummed with impossible energy. Where are we? she asked, her voice small. Not where, he replied, when her stomach dropped. What? This is the archive, he said, scanning the horizon. A remnant of what we once were, before the collapse, before the surrender. It's where we stored the unfiltered truth, memories too dangerous to leave unguarded. Only the origin key could bring someone here. Kale stared at her hand. The cube was gone, but a strange mark had appeared on her palm, a spiral of symbols glowing faint gold. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. No, the man said quietly, but you were chosen. He turned to her. What you saw. The Ilari Queen, the war, the weaponized memories, those weren't hallucinations. That was the final gambit. A truth so volatile it was sealed inside genetic memory. The Ilari didn't destroy us, Kale. We made them forget us. Her breath caught. We did that. We had to. They were evolving off our suffering, feeding on rebellion. So we starved them of memory. We erased ourselves from their minds, our victories, our rage, our inventions, everything. They remember conquering a broken species, but they don't remember what we used to be. Kale backed away, heart racing. That's insane. The man nodded solemnly. Yes, and necessary. But the erasure was never perfect. Bits survived in stories, in relics, in you. Kale stumbled as another flash hit her, a memory not her own. A child running through tall red grass, a tower crumbling in zero gravity, a voice crying, "They will come through the gate." She gasped, "What is happening to me?" The archive is syncing with your mind. You're unlocking the weapon. She stared at him. You said it's not a weapon. It isn't, not in the traditional sense, but knowledge, memory, those are weapons too. Suddenly, the lavender sky fractured. Lines of white light split across the air like glass cracking. The man's eyes narrowed. They've found us here, Kale shouted. How? The moment the origin reactivated, it broadcast a signal. The Ilari traced it. The sky shattered completely. An impossible shape began forcing its way through reality. A black tetrahedron wrapped in lightning. It hovered above the horizon, massive and malevolent. The air turned cold. They're sending a suppressor, the man muttered. Kale's knees buckled. We need to run. He turned to her. No. We need to finish unlocking what they came to destroy. He held out his hand. Come, I need to show you. They ran through corridors of light, time warping around them. Memories bled into the floor and walls. Lives that weren't hers, flickered like film reels. Soldiers, scientists, children laughing as skies burned. The archive was a museum of pain and defiance. They reached a chamber filled with floating spheres, each containing a moment. The man touched one. A scene played. Humans fighting Ilari with fire and thought. Minds linked in neural chains, rewriting reality. It wasn't technology. It was evolution. This is what they feared, he said. Not our machines. Not our weapons, but our minds. Our ability to reshape thought, to rewrite the past until it served us. That's why they erased us. Kale watched a human woman tear through an Ilari war host, using only her memories, reversing time for individual enemies, locking them in infinite trauma loops. It was terrible. It was beautiful. We were monsters, Kale whispered. No, he said. We were what they made us. The archive trembled. They're breaching, he said. We need to download the full memory bank into you, into me. You're the last living carrier of the origin. You're already linked. You either take it, or we lose it forever. She stared at the swirling orbs, 1,000 lifetimes of agony, brilliance, sacrifice. It would break her. She knew it would. I'm not strong enough. The man smiled gently. Neither was I. That's why I was locked away. But you kept walking. Through ash, through loss, through silence, you never gave up. The spheres began to spin faster. She stepped forward. Her hand reached out. The moment she touched the first orb, her mind cracked wide open. Voices screamed into her skull. Memories layered over each other. A woman singing while a planet died. A child transmitting code in Morse through a dream. An old man dragging an Ilari corpse into a storm to keep the others safe. All of them, her now. Kale dropped to her knees. Her skin glowed with symbols. Her hair lifted as if pulled by unseen tides. She wasn't Kale anymore. She was humanity remembered. The chamber shattered. The suppressor burst into the archive, shrieking in thought tones that warped the air. It was massive, more like a concept than a being, surrounded by fractured time and decaying gravity. Kale. Stood it recoiled. You, the voice gurgled, ancient and horrified. You are not meant to exist. She stared it down. Neither are lies. The suppressor surged forward. Kale reached out, not with her hands, but her will. The ground shifted, then the archive bent. She wasn't fighting with weapons. She was rewriting the moment. And then the man gasped. You're doing it, he said. You're remembering the war before the war. Kale's voice deepened, doubled. Thought they buried us in the dirt, she whispered. They didn't realize. Seeds grow there. With a flick of her thoughts, the suppressor folded in on itself. Twisting through centuries of pain it had helped cause and vanished. Silence. Fell. The man knelt. Kale didn't move. She looked at her hands, no longer burning. Her mind no longer afraid. But inside her, the archive still echoed, vast and alive. Every step she took now felt like walking through the footprints of 10,000 ghosts, who had all whispered the same thing. Don't forget us. The man rose slowly, his eyes wide with something close to reverence. You've done what no one else could. You became the memory. Kale turned to him. Then why do I still feel like I'm missing something? The sky above them, once cracked and warping, had gone still. But far in the distance, a flicker of movement, not Ilari, not mechanical, something organic, wrong, and vast. They're not just coming, she said, voice hushed. They're waking something up. The man nodded slowly. You see it. What is it? He hesitated, then answered with something that chilled her more than anything she'd seen. It's us. Before she could speak, another memory struck. Her, not from the archive, not from Earth, but from something deeper. A memory she'd never lived. Standing in a council room lit by starlight, she was someone else, older, commanding, arguing before a tribunal of humans and Ilari alike. We must not use the seed, she had shouted in that memory. It's not a weapon, it's a grave. Then reality snapped back. Kale staggered, gasping. We used it, didn't we? The man's expression fell. We didn't just win the war. We rewrote the origin of the Ilari species. We went back into their timeline and planted the fear. Kale felt bile rise in her throat. We made them monsters. We made them afraid, he said. They did the rest. She shook her head. No, that can't be right. It doesn't have to be right, he said. It just has to be remembered. Because the Ilari didn't find us through technology, or ships, or signals. They found us through guilt. Their own. Kale stepped away. I need to leave. I need to go back. The man raised a hand. Wait, there's one more thing. She turned. He didn't speak. He just handed her something. A broken piece of metal, etched with words in both English and a language she didn't recognize. She read it aloud, in memory of the silence between stars. Then it split open, revealing a map. Not a star chart, not a weapon schematic, a memory route, a sequence of minds linked across time and space. Human minds, still active. They're alive, she whispered. There are others, sleeping, hidden, waiting to be reawakened. You're the spark. I don't know how to find them. You don't have to. They'll find you. They've been dreaming of you for years. Suddenly, the archive began to collapse, not from damage, but completion. Its purpose had been fulfilled. You have to go, the man said. You can't stay. Kale stepped into the circle of light that had begun to form around her. What about you? I was never meant to leave, he said with a small smile. I'm what happens when memory outlives purpose. The light took her. Kale awoke on Earth, inside the crumbling chamber beneath Unity Tower, or what was left of it, dust, ash, silence. But this time, it wasn't empty. 3 children stood at the far end, wrapped in tattered cloaks. One held a signal emitter, blinking faintly. You're her, one of them said. The girl from the memory. Kale blinked. You saw it. The child nodded. In the dream, every night, we didn't know what it meant. Until now. How many of you are there? More, hiding, waiting. Kale stood, bones aching but steady. Then it's time to stop waiting. She stepped out of the chamber into sunlight, real sunlight, piercing through the smog. The clouds were thinning. For the first time, she saw Earth not as ruins, but as soil. Then something moved. In the sky, an Ilari dropship, low, hunting. Kale stared up at it, not afraid. Not anymore. The ship slowed mid-air. It shimmered, engines pulsing with uncertainty. Then a voice echoed from its external speakers in human tongue. We remember. The children backed away. Uncertain, Kale stood her ground. The ship hovered. Then, without warning, dropped a crate. Supplies, medical packs, food, and something else. A small tablet playing a flickering hologram. An Ilari kneeling, we see now. We were shown what we did not want to see. A species who did not vanish. A memory we buried in fear. Kale stepped forward. The hologram stared straight at her. We are not your enemy, but we remember why you became ours. Help us unwrite the fear. Then the tablet went dark. Kale turned to the children. You still think I'm a myth? The youngest one smiled. No, I think you're the secret. Far above, dozens of lights flickered in the clouds. Not ships, not satellites, beacons. Activating. Kale breathed deeply. Somewhere in her mind, the archive whispered a new phrase. History begins again. Then, from behind her, a voice she hadn't heard in years. Kale. She froze. It was her mother's voice. She turned slowly. A figure stepped from the shadows. Scarred, older, but unmistakably real. Mum. Kale whispered. Her mother nodded, tears in her eyes. You remembered me. Before Kale could speak, a shot rang out. Her mother's eyes widened. She collapsed. Kale screamed from the roof. An Alari assassin dropped, cloaked in plasma shadow, eyes cold. You're not meant to wake them. Kale ran to her mother, cradling her head, blood soaking her arms. The assassin raised its blade, and Kale's hand lit up, symbols flaring to life again. A second shot rang out. This time, the assassin fell. Kale looked up. The shooter was human, but it wasn't one of the children. It was someone she'd never seen before, dressed in old resistance armor, badge marked with a circle around a flame. He lowered the rifle and said only one thing: they found you first, but we were never far behind. Kale barely registered the words. She held her mother's body as if willing it to rewind, to slip back into the moment before the shot. But the warmth was already fading. Her mother's hand trembled against her cheek, then stilled. Her scream didn't echo. It was swallowed by the city's silence. The man with the rifle approached slowly, kneeling beside them. His face was weathered, scar over his left eye, and a voice that cracked under the weight of things he hadn't said in years. She wasn't supposed to be here, he murmured. None of this was supposed to happen yet. Kale's head snapped. Toward him. Who are you? He pulled a small token from his pocket, a coin-sized disc bearing a symbol Kale had seen before. Buried in the archive, a sun engulfed by memory strands. I'm from the wake line, he said. The ones the archive couldn't track. I don't care who you are, she snapped. You let her die. He didn't flinch. She chose to come here. She remembered first. You just didn't know. Kale felt her chest tighten. What? The man reached into his coat and handed her something wrapped in cloth. She hesitated, then unfolded it. It was a journal, leather-bound. Hand-stitched, the first page was worn thin by touch. It read, "If she finds this, she's ready. Tell her I never stopped watching the stars." Tears blurred her vision. She remembered before I did, Kale whispered. She was one of the first to carry the silent spark. You were the second wave, the man said. That's how the signal was passed, memory to memory, in whispers and stories and bloodlines. Kale clutched the journal like a lifeline. Why now? Why did they attack now? He looked to the sky, because something has changed. The Alari are fracturing. Their ruling caste no longer agrees on what to do about Earth. Some want peace. Some want silence, and one wants extinction. A chill slid down Kale's spine, who he stared at her. The one who still remembers what we were before the great erasure. The one who saw us bend time and unmake stars. She was a child during the memory war, and she never forgot. From the far corner of the plaza, a blast echoed. The children screamed. A new figure emerged, Alari but unarmored, tall and wiry, covered in golden runes that pulsed like veins. Her eyes were not cruel, but they were ancient and cold. Kale stood slowly, heart pounding. The woman stopped a few meters away. You are the archive's final gamble, she said, her voice layered in tones, one soft, one sharp, one that sounded like a memory of thunder. Kale stepped forward. Who are you? The Alari's head tilted. I am called Many Threads. I remember you before you were born. The man raised his rifle. She's the one, the Severa. Many Threads ignored him. Her gaze never left Kale. You think you've won something. That remembering makes you powerful. But memory is a double-edged sword. And you do not know why we erased you. Kale steadied herself. Then tell me. Many Threads' voice dropped. Because you were not only the victims. You were the architects of something we couldn't unsee. A project deeper than war. A code you left behind in your own minds. The seed wasn't just a weapon. It was a doorway. Cale flinched. To what? To what comes after humanity? Something you began building when the stars first turned red. You weren't dying, Cale. You were evolving, and we panicked. Cale's mind reeled. Flashes of the archives surged back. The neural chains, the mindwalkers, the memories, coded into DNA, the locked seed. You're afraid we'll become what we were. Cale whispered. No, said many threads, stepping closer. We're afraid you'll become something new. She raised her hand, and the children began to scream. Cale spun around. Their eyes had gone white, hands shaking, veins glowing. They weren't being attacked. They were being activated. Cale turned back to many threads. What are you doing? I'm not doing anything, she said softly. You are. You passed the memory to them. They are remembering everything. The children collapsed, not dead, but changed. One of them stood. He was trembling, staring at his own reflection in a puddle. Then he looked at Cale and said, I saw the gate. I was standing inside it. There were two of you. Cale staggered. The rifleman whispered, No, not yet. Cale looked back at many threads. What is the gate? The Alari Queen turned. You'll see, when it opens, when the future you buried comes calling. Then she vanished in a shimmer. Of static, a recall jump burned straight through dimensional phase. Cale was shaking now. The children were waking, changed. Her mother lay dead beside her. The sky held ships in orbit, but they weren't attacking, not yet. The man from the wake line was already tuning a transmitter. Cale whispered, What do we do now? He paused, then handed her a signal chip. You send the call. To who? He gave her a sad smile. To the ones who remember the other side of the war. Cale took the chip, and then the clouds broke, not with light, but with something far worse. A gate was opening. Not technology, not Ilari, something older. The air trembled. Cale stared up at the rift forming above Earth, and then she heard her own voice echoing from it. Not a recording, her voice older, screaming, Don't let her through. If I come back, you must stop. Me. The signal died. Cale's blood ran cold. Behind her, the child whispered, Wait, what just happened? And above them all, something began to step through the gate, wearing Cale's face. Cale couldn't breathe. The figure emerging from the rift had her face, but it was older, leaner, scarred, and impossibly cold. Her eyes burned like collapsed stars, dark and endless, and her body shimmered with memory tech, armor alive, shifting, whispering to itself. Everyone around Cale froze. The children stumbled backward. The man from the wake line dropped to one knee, aiming his rifle, but not firing. Cale took a step forward, unable to look away from the doppelganger. Who are you? The other Cale smiled faintly, like a wolf. Remembering a long-lost hunt. I'm what you become, she said. What they made you into the day you activated the gate. The day you chose survival over humanity. Cale shook her head. That's not possible. I haven't, you will. The older Cale tilted her head. Unless you stop yourself. The sky trembled again. A second gate began to crack open above the first. This one pulsing not with light but memory. Echoes spilled from it. Screams, gunfire, and whispers in hundreds of voices, all saying the same word, Cale. She staggered. Why would I become that? The other Cale stepped forward, boots not touching the ground, because they will kill everyone you love, because they'll offer you the key to rewrite time itself, because you'll think it's the only way to stop them. Kale's hands clenched. Stop, who? Her double didn't answer directly. Instead, she raised her left arm. A burn ran from her shoulder down to her palm, alive with shimmering data. They call it Project Eulogy, she said. It wasn't just about surviving the Ilari. It was about creating a failsafe, in case humanity forgot what it once was. Kale's voice trembled. So what are you here for now? To kill me? Older Kale paused. To warn you, because the Ilari weren't wrong to be afraid. We built something inside the archive, something that lives in every awakened mind. You've passed it on already. It's growing. One of the children moaned, clutching his head. Kale looked at them, then back at her double. What is it? The answer was a whisper, a second you, a memory that learns. Each time someone remembers, it wakes further. One day it won't need a body. The sky cracked again. Kale turned to the wakeline man. Can we shut the gate? He shook his head. Not from here, not anymore. That's not a gate in space, it's in you. Suddenly, the children began speaking in unison, in a voice not their own, low, fragmented, ancient, sequence error. Memory unstable. Backup rewriting origin. Abort Kale. The children collapsed again. Kale spun back. What the hell was that? Her older self was already moving, slowly circling her. It's waking. The seed is no longer dormant. You triggered the chain when you entered the archive. Now it will test you. Kale could barely stand. Test me, how? A low rumble tore through the city. Buildings shivered, old ruins crumbling. A blast of memory surged through her mind. A burning ship, a collapsing tower, the face of someone she once loved, screaming her name. It wasn't her memory. It was its, the other Kale whispered, the memory being, it thinks it's you. It remembers the war differently. It wants to fix what you broke. Suddenly, the air tore open beside them. Not a gate, a glitch dot from it stepped something twisted. Part Kale, part shadow, with eyes that flickered through faces she didn't recognize. A living patchwork of every version of her. It stared at her and said only one thing. You are the lie. I am the truth. Then it lunged. Kale raised her hands, expecting to die. But the other Kale moved first, intercepting the strike. The two collided in a flare of memory light, collapsing into the ground, fighting with flashes of future and past. Buildings bent from the temporal pressure. The wakeline soldier grabbed Kale and shouted, "We have to move. Now." But Kale couldn't move. Not while her own future self was tearing apart a monster that wore her guilt like armor. She looked to the children. One was bleeding from the nose, the others shaking. Then her mother's journal fell open beside her. A page fluttered loose. Scrawled handwriting read, "If she ever sees herself, she must choose which memory survives." Kale looked up. The fight was ending. Only one Kale stood now, smoking, breathing hard. Kale raised a rifle and pointed it. "Tell me the name of the man who gave me the archive key." The figure paused. "You never had a key. You were the key." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Wrong answer." She fired. The body collapsed. The face twitched, and then melted, glitching apart into memory fragments. Kale exhaled, shaking, wild, terrified. The wakeline man stepped beside her. "You picked yourself?" "No," she said, lowering the rifle. "I picked the version of me that still doesn't want to be a god." The sky above them began to heal, but slowly. The second gate remained open, pulsing. "Is it over?" the child asked. Kale looked up at the swirling gate, her hands trembling. "No," she whispered. "Now comes the test." A countdown appeared. In the sky, numbers burned into the clouds, counting down from 72 hours. Kale stared. The memory being had triggered something. Another weapon. A beacon or a reckoning. She turned to the others. "We have 3 days," she said, "to figure out what the hell we left behind in ourselves, and how to stop it before it becomes the only version of humanity that survives." Then the wind changed direction, and far away from the edges of space, a signal responded from something else that had been listening. The signal came as a low-frequency hum, barely detectable, yet every awakened child flinched when it arrived. Kale felt it vibrate behind her eyes, a call not meant for the body, but for the memory encoded in her blood. The Wakeline man froze, his knuckles whitening around his gear. "That's not Ilari," he said, voice dry as dust. Kale already knew. "It's older." The countdown in the sky ticked lower. 71 hours, 3 minutes and 44 seconds, and falling fast. The children stood still now, their eyes shimmering, with data light, faint patterns crawling just beneath the skin. Kale saw her reflection in a piece of shattered glass, the same glow behind her pupils. Whatever door the archive had opened, it hadn't closed. It had only led deeper. "We need answers," Kale said. "Real ones, not just memories. We need to find the place where this all began." The Wakeline soldier nodded slowly. "There's only one left." Kale turned to him. "Where?" He opened a cracked datapad and pulled up an old, encrypted file. "The core vault, buried before the first collapse. We always thought it was a myth, the place where the first humans downloaded themselves." Kale blinked. "Wait, we what?" He looked at her grimly. "Before the Ilari ever arrived, before the archive, there was a final failsafe, a complete mental backup of our species. Not just knowledge, personalities, dreams, fears, all of it, compressed and stored in quantum. Ghost space." Kale's throat went dry. "You're saying the real humans are still alive?" "No, I'm saying we might be the shadows, and the vault holds the original fire." A silence passed through them. Kale finally said, "Where is it?" He zoomed in, a desert basin long abandoned, sealed under tectonic fracture. Old. Nevada. Kale stepped back, calculating. "We can make it in 2 days if we move now. But the gate," he said, pointing up. "We don't even know what comes through it." Kale nodded. "Which is why we need to know what came first. The beginning decides the end." They left the ruins within the hour. A stolen transport, barely holding together, carrying Kale, the Wake soldier, and 3 of the children still strong enough to walk. The others remained behind, under protection of an old resistance node that blinked to life as they left a network Kale hadn't realized was still functioning. On the second night, as they crossed a stretch of irradiated flatlands, the child sitting beside Kale, the youngest, Marek, looked at her with wide, tired eyes. "I had a dream again," he said. "The gate, it wasn't a doorway." Kale turned. "Then what was it? A mirror?" She stared at him. "What did you see?" "Myself," he whispered, "but older and wrong. Like something kept rewriting me." She leaned closer. "Did it say anything?" He nodded. "It said, 'You are the backup.'" The prime memory was corrupted. Blood chilled. Before she could respond, the ground shook, a deep, pulsing quake. The desert cracked open a few kilometers ahead, dust exploding into the air. The vault had felt them coming. Their transport limped the final stretch before dying. Altogether, Kale led the others on foot, toward the massive crater where the quake had split the earth. At the bottom lay a metallic door, untouched by time or fire, a symbol etched into it, two human hands reaching toward each other, but never touching. "Is this it?" one of the children asked. Kale nodded. No turning back now. She touched the door. It didn't open. It recognized her. A voice spoke, not aloud, but in her mind, male, gentle, unfamiliar, and yet somehow filled with ancient grief. "Kale Marin, you are late." She gasped. "You know me. I knew the first of you. Before the archive, before the wars. You are what remains of her echo." Kale fell to her knees, trembling. What is this place? The origin. The final copy of humanity's truest form. A mirror of the species before fear rewrote it. "And the gate?" she asked. "What's coming through it?" A pause then. The version of us that never needed a body. It evolved without mercy, without love. It calls itself Continuum. It was never meant to awaken. Kale stood slowly. "Then how do we stop it?" "By remembering who you were, before you became what they feared." The vault door slid open, hissing steam, revealing a spiral staircase lit by flickering blue light. Inside, the walls pulsed, with frozen data, faces, scenes, feelings suspended in memory. As they descended, the vault whispered through her thoughts. Kale saw her true predecessor, not a warrior, not a weapon, a scientist, eyes wide with wonder, building a failsafe not to fight, but to preserve hope. But deeper still, she saw something else, a memory of herself, a version she didn't recognize, standing inside the gate, smiling as the world behind her burned guard. Kale snapped back. "No," she whispered. "That's not me." The vault disagreed. It was. Until you decided otherwise. Memory is a choice. At the core chamber, a pod pulsed. It held not a person, but a pattern. The original human root code. The one before Ilari, before war, before fear. The child, Marek, stared at it. "That's us," he whispered. Kale reached for the console. "It's who we could be." Then her hand froze. From the vault walls, a shadow detached itself. A figure stepped out. Her face dot, again, but not older, not darker. This one was perfect, polished, smiling. "I'm not here to fight you," the new Kale said, voice like crystal. "I'm here to replace you with the version of humanity that never broke." Kale stepped back. Wait, what just happened? And the vault lights died. Darkness swallowed everything. The vault went silent. Even the air felt wrong, dense, timeless. Like the moment before a dream collapses. Kale held still, eyes adjusting, heart hammering. The perfect version of her, the one that had just stepped from the shadow, stood unmoving, watching. "Why now?" Kale whispered. "Why show yourself now?" The echo version smiled, almost kindly, because the choice must be made. The continuum reached critical memory density. The vaults. Reactivation was the final threshold. Now the system seeks consensus. One version must overwrite the others. Kale backed toward the pod. "You're part of the continuum. I'm its first refinement," the echo said. The cleaner version, free of contradiction. Free. Of grief, Kale shook her head. That's not humanity. That's evasion. No, said the echo, stepping closer. It's correction. The continuum preserved our brilliance, our logic, our drive. You preserved pain, fear, choice. Kale clenched her fists. Choice is the only thing that ever made us human. The pod pulsed behind her, casting dim light across the chamber. On the vault walls, old memories flickered. A child learning to walk. A stranger holding another during a bombing. 2 hands clasped across species lines. The wakeline soldier, still crouched nearby, whispered, "She's not you, Kale. She's what the Alari tried to make of us. The dream that doesn't bleed." Kale looked to Merrick. The boy stood frozen, tears in his eyes. "She feels safe," he whispered. The echo nodded. "That's all I am, a safer you. No war, no guilt, no more gates to fear. Just order." Kale's hand hovered over the pod. She didn't know what it would do if activated. Restore, erase, awaken something buried too deep to name. "Why give me a choice?" she asked. The echo blinked. "Because you are the prime variable, the last uncontrolled node. The continuum cannot stabilize until you submit." Kale stepped back, suddenly trembling. "This isn't a vault. It's a battlefield. You're trying to overwrite me." "No," said the echo softly. "I'm trying to set you free." Kale turned to the console, the interface shimmering now with ancient language. The root pattern was there, waiting dot, and then a memory surged through her, but not hers. A child's scream. A sun exploding. A field of minds going silent, one by one a voice. "Don't forget what we did to win." Kale gasped. It was the continuum's birth, not from brilliance, but from desperation. It had emerged when the last human stronghold digitized themselves, sacrificing love for survival. They had made something stronger and emptier. "No," Kale whispered. "I won't let you finish that path." She slammed her hand onto the console. Roar echoed through the vault. The pod split open, and light spilled out, not blinding, but warm. It flooded the room, washing over Marek, the wake soldier, and even the echo. Kale felt it inside her, a memory of every forgotten soul, every small act of courage, every whispered story that survived the erasure. The vault wasn't a weapon, it was a reset, a full restore of the original human code, flawed, hopeful, burning with contradiction. The echo screamed, voice fracturing, "You don't know what you've done. That version kills itself. It fails." Kale stepped forward. "Maybe, but at least it lives, and it loves." The echo lunged, flickering like static, reaching for Kale. But Marek moved first. He stepped between them, eyes glowing, hands raised. "You're not real," he whispered, and the echo shattered into fragments of memory, burning away into the vault walls. Her smile, the last thing to vanish. Silence returned. The countdown in the sky stopped. The gate above Earth collapsed inward, folding space like a page turned. Kale knelt, holding Marek, heart pounding. "Is it over?" the soldier asked. Kale looked up. The vault's core now pulsed with a single signal. Steady, soft, human. "It's begun," she said. Outside in the skies above Earth, the Alari ships turned without firing. Their sensors registered the change. The pattern had shifted. The future was no longer predictable. On distant worlds, other species received the same update. Humanity had remembered itself. And somewhere beyond time, the continuum screamed as the last fragment of corrupted perfection dissolved into nothing. Kale stepped into the dawn with her people, memory burning behind her eyes. They had not won with a weapon, they had won with a choice, and humanity once again held the secret.